I am relegated to the indoor broadcast tonight because of what appears to be another 2 feet of snow here in beautiful northern Massachusetts. And the way that I feel right now, it seems like I shoveled just about all of it. It is, I guess, it's good exercise, but better exercise for maybe for an 18-year-old. But it's beautiful, and hopefully tomorrow when the wind calms down and all that, I'll do an outside pod tomorrow. And I also wanted to just point back at the pod I did last night, which was the White Rose, which was that wonderful opposition group in Nazi Germany that really it just connected a lot of dots for me. What would it look like for people that made the mistake of supporting a candidate that they now realize was perhaps not the best choice, and how they could find religion and get back on track to find the patriot that is alive in all of us. And so, if you missed the White Rose pod from last night, I'd ask you to go back and take it's here in the feed. It's free, and just take a look at it and shoot me a note if you agree that the story of this young student-led group, the three of which were were murdered by guillotine or guillotine uh, after a swift Gestapo trial for the crime of handing out leaflets and warning their fellow citizens about the risks of an authoritarian regime. You've probably heard of Hitler, and of course, while we don't ever make what might seem like a false equivalence between the behavior of Donald Trump and Adolf Hitler, because that has a lot of sensitivities wrapped up in it. The fact is that the people in 1943, 4, 5 probably also felt that they were being alarmist if they weren't fully aware of what was being done in their name in Poland and otherwise in the Holocaust, which was reaching a fever pitch by that point. Um, so it's important that we give this what's going on here a name, stay focused on it, and as I've uh, suggested before, stay focused on what we can control now, and that's the midterm election. And that brings me a couple interesting developments recently. One of them is the petulant hissy fit your president, Donald J. Trump, threw after the Supreme Court ruled against him 6-3 in the tariff decision, which was the least surprising outcome to that particular case, because as we discussed, that was a case that the Supreme Court chose to hear, knowing full well the outcome of what they're ruling. Was it going to be? It should have been a 9-0 ruling, but the Clarence Thomas, Sammy Samuelito, and Kavanaugh's "Stop, Don't Stop Me, Kavanaugh" had to do their upside down freak flag show to show that they are, lying down for Donald Trump, that they are fully supporting the president in everything he does, because they are silly people that are not concerned with the Supreme Court, their own personal legacies, or as Kavanaugh with his behavior before he was confirmed, he's not not concerned about much of anything else. But yeah, so there's Donald Trump, and everybody saw him reacting in the press, saying, I am so disappointed in the conservative justices in the Supreme Court that their ruling is harming the American people. I'm going to write Supreme Court in lowercase, which, obviously that'll show them, but just behaving like the petulant child that he is. And he made a couple other comments about the Supreme Court, and has made little asides over the years. There's not I always go back to Project 2025, and it's kind of the mega sycophantic Bible of the right, ultra right uh, wing of what used to be the Republican Party, to see if there were any direct references in Project 2025 about the way that they could manipulate the Supreme Court in a way that would advantage the conservative movement over a longer period of time than one presidential term. And I think I found it. I think I discovered it. But the title of today's episode is Nuclear Cannon. Okay. The part two is Eileen Cannon, right? So she was appointed about 6 years ago by Donald Trump for to the court in the Southern District of Florida, and she's been in the news much more frequently than her jurisprudence uh, would deserve, except that she's done everything she can do short of physical intimacy, and I'm not even clear on that, to give Donald Trump as many victories and happy endings as he can possibly have. And she, as you remember, was intimately intertwined with the Trump v. U.S. version one on the confidential documents that he kept in under his toilet seat at Mar-a-Lago. And that's the whole, the Jack Smith and the case that involved, quite correctly, that was filed against Donald J. Trump to punish him for misusing secret documents, retaining them, lying about the fact that he had retained them because he felt, he had been president. He was Donald J. Trump, so he deserved to keep anything that he wanted as a souvenir because he's Donald Trump, and he was harmed, injured by Joe Biden, by Biden beating his ass in the electoral college, and then in every other way in the election. So he was very, a lot of grievance, post January 6th, the whole thing. He was just so angry, so sad. And when Donald gets sad, people get hurt because he can't let it go. He's a spoiled prick child of an overbearing father who it turns out, interestingly enough, I just read today that old Fred had some connections to the KKK, which is kind of funny when you think about the housing policy crises the Trump family operation had in New York going way, way back. It kind of follows. But so the nuclear cannon, the cannon part is Eileen Cannon, who of course is a young woman who was born in Cali, Colombia, and moved to the United States. She, Cali, lovely, beautiful. It was also in the 80s. It was between Medellin and Cali was the height of the drug war in Escobar times between those two cities. There was a hell of a lot of action. I have it on pretty good authority. So it was a fun part of the world. But she is, let's see, she was born in '81. A perfectly good. She went to the 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 Harvard, the Ivy of the South, which is Duke, and then she went to law school at University of Michigan. Perfectly fine credentials. You look at the Supreme Court in the United States, and there's just a lot of Harvard, a lot of Yale, right? Seems plus plus our nice friend from uh, 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 Ms. Coney Barrett, who went to Notre Dame, of course. Yeah. So, in a perfectly fine career coming up in the as a prosecutor in the Southern District of Florida, and she was appointed to the bench by Donald Trump, like I said, and I guess it was in 2020. Was it at the very end of 1.0? I think. Yeah. So in any case, so there's Arlene. She loves Donald. She is beholden to him. She thinks that he's great and has done everything she can to run interference for him. And just very recently, she put the final kiss of death on the files that Jack Smith put together regarding his assessment of that case that was tossed out. It was delayed, 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 and then when Trump was going to be president again, they dismissed the case, which you can argue is the right thing to do because trying a sitting president for a crime as serious as the crime is, it's not like child sex trafficking, but breaches of sharing or retaining classified documents against the law. And when you're given an opportunity to return them, and you lie about whether you possess them or not, and then you employ the services of two of your butlers at Mar-a-Lago to run interference with the classified documents, that's bad faith in any state. In Florida, it's just that's just like a day at the beach because that's how they do shit down there. But yeah, so she just this week has ruled that that final report that was put together and long delayed the release was pushed out and pushed out and pushed out. And now she said that nobody's ever going to get to see it. Now, that is an appealable ruling. Pretty sure it is. But what I know for sure with Eileen Cannon on one side, Pamela Joe Bondi on the other side, and lots of other sympathetic Trump appointees in the middle, that they can absolutely make sure that the details of that. I mean, he's got the Epstein files going at full speed right now, which is more than Trump can handle. But he would prefer that the details of the classified documents case not come out, and so they can definitely keep it under wraps through the midterms. So that would be bad press for them. We don't know everything in the file, but we got some pretty good ideas. And so what they'll do is they will keep it in a lockbox and let nobody get a look at it until the second week in November this year, and then the midterms will have come and gone, and they're going to be playing lots of other games between now and then. But the nuclear part of today's episode of the title, I was kind of the absurdist that lives inside my adult brain. No alcohol, no drugs. So uh, uh, there's some creative movement going on in that absurdist space that is not always healthy, but it makes for some fun daydreams. And, there are certain members of the House and Senate who have said over the last, since Donald Trump took power again, that what we need to do is we need to expand the Supreme Court. And that's something, that was, from your history, something that FDR threatened to do when he was being held back from doing what he needed to do in the New Deal. And he threatened to expand the court, and just the threat was enough to kind of get everybody in line. So in what I call our team, the progressive side, so that the silliness, the corruption, there's Clarence Thomas and Sam Alito. Are they retiring? Are they retiring in time for Trump to appoint the replacement before the midterms? Strategically, it makes sense. But if you think about the power that Trump has now and will never, and perhaps no Republican will have for some period of time, I'm hoping, after this performance that we've seen in the last in Trump 2.0, that Republicans in the House and the Senate and in the White House don't deserve to have those controls at all. For they need a decade long timeout. I would say that would be about fair, in my humble opinion. So, what is nuclear refers to, of course, the nuclear option, right? And now a filibuster breaking nuclear option would not be necessary for what I'm proposing. And I almost want to keep it really quiet because I don't want the Republicans to hear it. Not that I am not a highly paid political strategist, but with all of the hue and cry on the progressive side about, you know, flooding the court, or flooding the zone, whatever we want to, however we want to refer to it. If I were the conservative party, if I were the Republicans, and Donald Trump is deteriorating before our very eyes, and we're going to get absolutely slaughtered in the midterms in any case, and the Senate is still in play, what would I do? I would take that page right out of the progressives playbook and play it myself. Right? So you have Clarence Thomas and Alito are both, 80 plus or minus. And what we want to do, if you're the Republicans, if you're the ultra right white Christian nationalist, those people, is you want to replace, excuse me, you want to replace those 80-year-old dudes, excuse me, please. You want to replace those old dudes with some young dudes and gals. Excuse me. Thank you. Yeah. So the rumor, the what's been out there in the ether recently, was that it was Alito, because he has a book deal coming up, that he's most likely to be the one to step down first. But I don't see any reason that Donald Trump doesn't just pick up the phone, as we've talked about before, and say, "You two, you're out. I want your resignation on my desk by X date, which will give me enough time to pick your replacement, a little, a little wiggle room, plan for contingencies that we don't, just not cut it too close, but let's do it we'll just pick a day by July 1st. I want your resignations on my desk." But how about if they double up? They have control of both houses of Congress, and those votes the first vote, which would be to change the number of people in the Supreme Court, right? And then the only other vote is coming out of committee when judges are nominated, right? And that's that you don't need a super majority for any of that. I put the nuclear in the name of the episode to emphasize they could, under any circumstances, force through that sort of game. And think about this: if they were able to take out Clarence Thomas and Sam Alito and replace them with Eileen Cannon, because I'm gonna, as soon as I'm done here, I'm gonna look at the markets and see what the best price I can get on Eileen Cannon right now as uh, the next Supreme Court nominee, because she's in. I haven't looked at it in the poly market sense, but I've always, James Ho is always one that I wrote about him. Was it a year ago? Um, yeah, it was something, because it was, with a name like that, something you can have a lot of fun with the Ho you don't know. I wrote, it wasn't a podcast, it was just something I wrote in the Substack feed. But he's a good candidate. He was, Jim Ho was a clerk for Clarence Thomas. So and he's of that ilk. Conservative bona fides are 100% there, and he would be a good choice because he would be the first Asian American Supreme Court justice, and there are a couple other candidates that would fit that demographic profile, but he's the one that I always kind of keep my eye on. But after Eileen Cannon, you think about Donald J. Trump, grievance meter going through the roof because the Supreme Court saying no, even though it's my argument that it was all part of the game, that the ruling was going to go that way and everybody knew it. It's still Donald Trump. And anytime even if you told Trump in the morning, you told him at breakfast, said, DJT, in order to further your political goals, your strategy, I'm going to say no to you on camera at lunch today, but it's in service of your overall strategy. So allow me to say no to you at lunch. By dinner, we'll be laughing about it. So is that okay? And he'll say, yeah, sure, whatever. And then if you get on camera and you ever say no to Donald J. Trump, he's going to have a hissy fit, right? Because he just he doesn't roll that way. So I'm going to argue that what Ms. Cannon, Judge Cannon did in burying Jack Smith's file on the secret documents from Mar-a-Lago, the fact that she essentially buried that through the midterm elections. I think she just went to the top of the food chain, and that he will choose her because what does he reward above all else? If it's not family, it's loyalty, and there's not a close third. That's what it's all about with him. So that show, because she did and will take heat for that decision, because it's irregular in the way that her earlier decisions regarding Donald J. Trump and Jack Smith were too. And she took heat all the way along, but she knew she was taking heat to blow smoke up Trump's ass. So for her, it was a worthwhile trade. Right? So yeah, so she'll be and I'll put my money where my mouth is, and when I find a good number, I'll let you know where I found it and what it is, if it makes sense. I mean, I'm not a compulsive gambler or a gambler at all, unless, as I've admitted before, it regards horses 2 nights a week at in Hong Kong. But the poly markets are interesting because they're get the liquidity in the poly markets now is sufficient to give good, and if you're looking for to get a signal on where public sentiment is on particular candidates for particular roles on out in the future, then it's useful. It's a tool. It isn't it is not foolproof, but it's a little bit fun too, because you're it's sort of it's data science stuff, so there's kind of a cool sheen to the entire program. So yeah. Yeah, so I will stick by my guns and say that Ms. Cannon just went to the front of the list because he will have lists already prepared for him by Heritage, and so he knows there's a pool of, they probably gave him 6, 7, 8 names, where they're from, how black they are, how brown they are, all the things that matter to Donald J. Trump. Yeah, but that they're conservative bona fides, proven by rulings in X, Y, and Z cases. That they don't want any surprises. They don't want any David Suitors. They don't want to get bushwhacked and yeah, no ballyhoo. So yeah, so that's my nuclear canon. I'm it's pretty radical. It will blow the top off of Washington for a little while if they should try something that aggressive. And would that make senators like John Thune and others that have stayed on the sidelines when it was actually their job to be patriotic? When, John Thune, who has behaved reprehensibly through this entire process, particularly, once it was, you're with your team, you're siding with your team, right? It's like it's all of the idiots getting silly about Olympic athletes, right? Your Vice President JD Vance criticizing Miss Gu about playing for the performing for the competing for the enemy. And of course, it's a good story. The double gold for the men's and women's U.S. hockey team, and that nice young man. Everybody in MAGA can get behind um, a fluid Jewish goal scorer on a hockey team, right? I mean, that's part of the MAGA home team love fest, I'm sure. So cheer for them. Do whatever, or not. Cheer for Timbuktu University if you choose to, because it's your choice and it has nothing to do with what those idiots want you to do. But I will be delighted uh, and horrified if my little prognostication comes through. But if you've got, what are the things, running out of time, right? It's March almost tomorrow morning. It's we're getting close. It's a week until March. You know, spring is coming. I hope it is because I don't want to do any more shoveling like that. Um, and then we're all of a sudden we'll be getting, oh, it's 9 months away, 8 months, 7 months, summer's coming, World Cup, uh, all of the things that will distract us when the weather gets nicer and just real life and fun things like that. And then I forgot to sign up for mail-in ballots. And I'm going to Mars with Elon Musk and you know, so we need to make our plans, stick with collective action and all the things that I repeat ad nauseum. But if I were the Republicans, what are you saving it for? The polls are indicating in the polling markets that you're going to have either a lame duck president or a lame ass MF president. It's a matter of degrees, right? So if you want to have a big flurry, and if Donald Trump is he concerned about his legacy as a president? You know, arc to Trump triumph for whatever the heck he's doing, the embarrassment of the ballroom and the lack of a Nobel Peace Prize. Does he really care about making things better for the Republican Party? A party that he didn't become a Republican until whatever it was, 15 years ago or something. He was a Democrat, pro-choice Democrat. That's your conservative man of faith right there, standing up for you, Donald J. Trump. Yeah. So I would just it seems it would be painful for a short period of time, but it would be a way for the Republican Party to seal that one branch of government, to kind of not the branch, but the Supreme Court itself, to put their imprint and with indelible marker with Sharpie on that institution for decades to come. Right. So we'll see if I'm right, and there's a good number out there in the market. Then we'll have I'll break training and we'll have a glass of champagne. So in any case, nuclear cannon. Check back in on White Rose from last night if you didn't see that. I'd appreciate it. And as always, the retweets. I keep trying to not say that, but I'm just uh, Elon has infected my brain. So restacks, subscribe, share to a friend, a family, share with an enemy, share with the entire enemy state, share it with a MAGA, whomever. But appreciate you guys and have a beautiful night. Thanks very much.